So good morning, Dawn Fry. How are you this morning, my good friend?
Very good. Very good. Thank you, Adam. Very pleased to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Yeah.
Really nice. I gave you your full title there, didn't I? Dawn Fry. I don't think I've ever called you Dawn Fry to your face before.
No, I like it.
Yes. So, how have you been anyway? What's for any of our viewers? I say this at the beginning of all of these because I've recorded them during lockdown, but we're in June 2020. COVID-19's been the main feature of all our lives for the last couple of months now, and we're just coming out of lockdown, aren't we, Dawn?
Sure. No,
Yeah.
it's been an up and down journey here, and that isn't. I think absolutely initially I was completely panicked because both my husband and I offer workshops predominantly as our main form of income. So it was wiped out overnight. So I did start doing, what can I do to make money quick? So I came up with a couple of bits for that. Also, I think initially I was quite frightened. I went into that, this is so scary. We're shut down. This must be a really nasty thing. And then as time went on, I got over myself. And obviously then we heard from the government that we'd get a small amount of support,
Yes.
which we have done, which has helped enormously. It doesn't cover everything, but it covers, it's better than it could have been.
Yes.
And then it's been, I've been working on mindset and getting into some very different things, which I'm sure we'll come on to later when we chat about business stuff. But it's also the big family stuff. The family, I've had all my family here, 3 children, grown-up children mostly, one's still at school.
Yeah.
And just supporting them through what they're going through as well. I think that has been, and in terms of I know we're going to talk about all sorts, but in terms of your business, if you are worried, concerned, or totally consumed by something going on in your family, that is quite a big thing to then switch into business mode and keep that, woohoo, we've got to keep going here, got to keep it, that is a challenge in itself. So the biggest challenge has been in keeping some momentum going while supporting those that have needed support.
Yes, I think it's been a learning exercise for all of us about what's important, and we're always juggling, aren't we? We're always juggling, regardless of whether we're employed, self-employed. We've always got these different roles. I interviewed someone a name that might be familiar to you a couple of weeks ago, Such Amin, the legal guy. He was in a network that we were both in, and that's how I got to know Such. And he used the famous line that you and I will know, but maybe the rest of the world won't, that he's got 3 main jobs: being a great CEO, a great dad, and a great husband. And the problem is he can't be a great one of those all the time. If he's a great CEO, it's probably the expense of being a great husband and father. If he's a great husband, it's at the expense of the other 2. So it's this juggling task. But I think we've all had to wrestle with those things as time's gone by, as well as keeping our bank accounts at a safe level and our family equally safe. So interesting times. Well, we first met, Dawn. I was contemplating this before. It must be 10 years ago. Do you know?
At least that. I think it might be a tiny bit longer because it was the early days of joining EC for me. Yes. My business is 11 years old now, so it could be about then.
I seem to remember it as what is now the King Power Stadium in Leicester. Does that ring a bell for you? Or was it someone?
It could well be.
Yeah, and we were part of a network, the Entrepreneurs Circle, and we were both embarking on our business careers. And you know what they say when you go to an event like that? It wasn't really a networking event, but inevitably there's always a bit of networking that goes on. They always say, try and get around and see, come away with 5, 6 business cards. And I think you and I tagged on to one another at the beginning, and I don't think we left each other's side until the end.
I just remember, Adam, this is so burned on my brain, how well you listen. And I've always said this back to you. You can go to networking events, and we'd all done them. If we'd started in business, you've done breakfast, lunch and dinner networking, haven't you?
Yes.
at the outset until you learn what's good and what's not. But I just remember you absolutely listened. You weren't listening to say what you needed to say. You were listening with genuine interest. And that was such a rare thing that you absolutely stayed in my mind. And that's why I probably never left your side. Bad luck.
Well, I think probably, you know, this is the Mutual Appreciation Society. I'm sure you also demonstrate that quality. And that's why we got on so well, because we were interested in one of the stories. I mean, that's as important a lesson that you could give anyone, isn't it? Listen with genuine interest, without trying to worry about what you're going to say next. Hopefully I'll demonstrate that through the course of the next 45 minutes to an hour. It's always a bit more difficult when you've got a list of questions to ask. So just tell us, Dawn, a little bit about your story. So you don't need to, you can start wherever you like, actually, go into as much detail as you want. Tell us a bit about your story and where it's led you to this point.
So do you mean sort of why I started my business, or just the business as it is now?
Well, maybe a little bit of background about your early career, as it were.
Okay.
And, you know, I'd go from that quite quickly into, because I know your businesses. Yeah, exactly. Because actually, I think our listeners and viewers are more likely to be thinking about starting up and wrestling. So that's the power. I mean, but you go into any detail you like. That'd be really useful, Dawn.
Well, I suppose I was a very frustrated career person. I didn't really put any thought or planning into career. I had no aspirations. That's no blame game. I just was, you know, the only thing I knew I wanted in life is kids. I thought I really want to be a mum. Yeah. And then what happened was I was always told I was Miss Average at school, and sort of thought, oh, all right then. Didn't care. And it was when I got into work and I just kept getting so frustrated, and it took me years to work out that actually I was just underselling my skills or not realizing potential. But what I managed to do, because of frustration and I used to do lots of different jobs, and what it has given me is a wonderful skill set, because, you know, I've tried so many things, worked in lots of different industries. But just before I had children, I sort of had made quite, I'd really climbed the ladder. I was a general manager at a professional body, and that role was really diverse. I was running massive events, massive dinners in the city, all held at the Grosvenor. We had the governor of the Bank of England. We had to match everyone up for networking purposes. There was, you know, I've sat in every big bank's boardroom, you know, that people who, because we were a financial professional body, I sort of didn't realise the sort of gravitas of what I was doing. But I was looking after loads of people. We were running education, publications, a magazine. It was a wonderful grounding. Well, one big lesson from that, we had a general manager that was due to retire, and I got promoted to general manager because the other lady went on maternity leave and decided not to come back. So I think he took the easy option. That's no bad reflection on me. And in came a new director general, and he was ex-financial director of the Economist magazine, and he was a big guy. And I thought, here we go, I'm going to get found out. I'll give myself 5 minutes. And we got on like a house on fire. And he taught me so much about walking the job and getting into the people. And I never was allowed to go to him with a problem. Well, I could, but I had to have at least 2 solutions. You know, he just taught me so much. And I'm really grateful to him. He was amazing. And I still probably felt someone was going to look over my shoulder and say, Dawn, who are you kidding? And but I did it. So then I started having babies, and then there was a series of part-time things, because it was such a big job, that job. It was early starts, late nights, travel, and I didn't want to do it with kids. So I did a series of part-time things, and then that frustration really kicked in again. So it was all of that I said to myself one day, Dawn, it's not them. It's you. You're just taking a job that's available, and then you're getting cross with it. You're trying to make it something it isn't. Come on, let's try something of your own. And it was that sheer frustration. There was a few personal things going on, but that's for another time. But it was that, like, I just got, not rock bottom is too severe, but I just got so frustrated that I knew I had to try something different. And it was from that sort of moment of like being really low that I thought, yes, what about, and my idea for chocolate first came, running chocolate workshops. Literally one of those, I had no history of it, even though I'm called Fry, nothing. I just thought it had quite a nice business model to it, you know. Chocolate must be an easy sell. I knew it had to be food related. I sort of took the things I knew I liked, people, food, and sort of a workshopy type environment, and started investigating what that would be while I was still in a job. And then it was the height of the last recession. I was called into the office and he said, look, I'm going to, you know, we're doing away with your department. And I went, yes. And he said, oh, don't, everyone's been crying. And I said, oh, because actually, when I look back, I would urge anyone. I think I was being a bit fearful there. I got an idea and I was so excited about it, and so fortunate that that happened, because would I have done it? I don't know, but thankfully it happened and I did. No redundancy package. I hadn't been there long enough. It was the height of the recession. Everyone was telling me it was a stupid idea to start something, but I thought it's now or never. So made redundant in June and launched in September 2009.
Yes, fantastic. It really resonates with me. My story to starting up on my own has got similarities to that, in that I'd been thinking about it for a while, and very similar actually. My boss at the time said, unfortunately, we're going to have to make your position redundant, and then he said, why are you smiling? And I said, because you've just given me the kick up the arse that I needed to do the thing that I've been thinking about. Thank you. And I was still absolutely petrified at the time about what I was going to do next, but fate plays its little part, doesn't it? You know, something happens to you know, push us to the next level. So you started your chocolate business, chocolate box, is it called? Remind me, Dawn.
It's called the Melting Pot.
The melting pot, yes, of course.
Yeah.
And that was, well, tell us what that business was and who it supported, who the clients were.
So the idea was just taking those elements, as I said, that I love. People, it ended up being chocolate and a workshop environment. I had been working in people development, so I had some experience of running workshops just prior to starting that. So I had a beautiful big, we called it the shed. It was a great big den at the end of the garden. And I knew I was going to use that space, so we frantically converted it and made it all pretty and called it the summer house at the end of the garden. That's where I was going to run them. Massive, blagged my way onto training courses because they were full, and I said, oh, I've got to start. So got trained up on how to use the chocolate, and I started offering adult and children workshops from the summer house. I also, obviously, actually a nice little story at the outset. A friend in the playground, who's still my web person today, her and her husband are very techie, put my website up for me while I was getting everything ready. And the first ever inquiry was from Tesco. They were an international training team and they wanted a training day. So I did some practice runs, and I think I had one kids party before I had to go and deliver at a venue, this corporate chocolate event, and I was petrified. Thought they're going to find me out here, but it was brilliant. It was absolutely, I sort of over delivered, but it was just fantastic. So my first ever gig that I got from shoving up a website was from Tesco.
Yeah,
so
amazing.
Over the years I just developed, I sort of I started off with those basic workshops, but I do schools and team builds, and I do some collaborations with my husband. He's a blacksmith, so he does blacksmith days, and we do a combination of where we call it a hot chocolate day? I don't know, but you know, basically it's where you come along, you do metal and chocolate. So we've done collaborations, and then some years into it, I call it a business in a box because it's not a franchise, but I sort of documented everything that I do into this really comprehensive manual, having read the E-Myth, as we all have.
Yeah.
And and so I started selling the option for people to do it where they live. I've sold a few. One of the things I've sort of explored that a bit, and so one thing I did discover from that is the training and supporting people to get started.
Yes.
I absolutely loved, which sparked another idea.
Yes, of course, and we'll come on to that next, actually. But it's interesting, hearing the story, and a few things have come up a couple of times, which I'm sure will resonate with listeners. Is the idea of imposter syndrome.
Yes.
So your new boss comes into work, and you think, "Oh, right, here we go. I'm going to get found out now." And of course, you don't get found out because you're very good at your job. And then you think, "Oh, I'd really love to start something of my own, but am I the right person to do it?" Again, imposter syndrome. Of course you are. It's like, who am I to be doing this? And it's the thing that's in so many of our minds, whether we want to start something new within our business or we want to start in business for the first time. I think some people are fortunate, probably a minority of people are fortunate they never experience those thoughts. The rest of us have to push on and overcome them or never get started. What's the advice in that regard for people, Dawn?
Well, actually, that's a really good question. One of the things I say to people I'm helping out is get used to fear, because fear is sort of your friend. It's never comfortable. That feeling, you think, oh, here we go. Well, I'm just trying to get over to people that it's a good sign. It's a sign that you're pushing yourself. It's a sign that you're stretching those comfort zones. And it's a sign that you're going to feel fantastic the other side of it, because you will have grown, you will have learned something, you will have pushed yourself to do something that is uncomfortable. And then, even if it doesn't work out in the way you did, you will have learned something. We learn more from our mistakes. So that imposter syndrome means you're stretching yourself, and that means that you will be more confident at that thing that you're scared of right now. But one thing, and that's another sort of tack I sort of went down, I didn't realise that one of my sort of special skills was sort of, if you like, a customer experience, because I just love people and I'm interested in them. And so I just have this ability to create atmosphere, to really work out people very quickly, whether they're shy and quiet or noisy. And I realised that these skills I was using hugely in my business. And other people, Nigel once said to me, and he said, I don't know what it is that you've got, Dawn, but I want some of it in my business. And I went and did a little project with his office. And I was thinking, he's got it there, because it's quite hard to put your finger on something that you do entirely naturally. All of us will have that skill about us. But one of the things that's really helped me when I feel that is, imagine what it's like receiving what you're delivering, if I'm not owning it and being as confident as I can be. So if I take, for instance, the biggest example for me was speaking. When I was in the corporate world, I was petrified. I was pathetic. I would write notes and speak by rote. And I sort of told myself that was a story I'd told myself, that I was rubbish at presenting. I was never behind the message. So I went off and learned. I studied people who were brilliant at it, and I practiced. And I sort of I practiced and worked out what I was going to say, and then ripped up my script and spoke from the heart. And all the time remembering, what is this like for the person on the other end? Because once you remove yourself and you're, I'm so nervous, and realise that that's awful for someone to watch, you can sort of step out of yourself a bit, and then suddenly you're owning it. You don't ever start off not nervous. But if you suddenly own that space, you can see people enjoying it so much more, and then you get more confidence to carry on.
Yeah, I 100% agree with all of that, Dawn. And you're dead right. It's about being authentic. I think putting yourself in the recipient's shoes is a very powerful technique. I don't know if it's one I've used as much as maybe I can, but it's definitely one that I'll take away and think about. I'm sure I do it maybe without realizing it a lot of the time, but yeah, no. And actually, I think at the heart of entrepreneurship, at the heart of a desire to want to start something, there's always this feeling of, well, I'm just making this up as I go along. And I love that there's a line in one of the Indiana Jones films. I can't remember which one, but his sidekick says to him, "What do we do next, Indy?" And Indiana Jones says, "I don't know. I'm just making this up as I go along." And it always resounds, resonates with me, because I think that is what being an entrepreneur, a business owner, a creator is all about.
It's so about owning it. It's so about stepping up and taking responsibility, whether you know the answer or not. It's about saying I don't know, but
I'll find out, and I'll do the best thing that I can at the time, because it's important to have a strategy and a vision about where you want to end up.
Sure.
I'm sure Indiana Jones knew that he wanted to get safe and win and get the treasure, but at that particular they say, don't they, that the best laid plan will never survive first contact with the enemy, and it's so true. So in the battle, you still know that you want to win the battle, you want to win the war, or whatever the outcome is that you want. But of course, you need to be flexible and adapt as you go along. So clearly, as you started out on the chocolate business, and Joe, your husband, carries on with the the foundry business. Yes, we all know what we want. We want happy customers, we want more money in the bank, and we want to deliver value to our client base and make an improvement to the world. And then COVID-19 comes along, coronavirus. Okay, so what do we do then? Well, we make it up as we go along with the vision in mind, and that means doing things that we never thought we might have had to, like staying indoors for 8 weeks. So we adapt. So really powerful lessons in there. So then you alluded to your other business, which has come out of the back of the love and passion for helping people. So tell us a lot about that, Dawn.
So I started a program, New Dawn. I had an idea I wanted to try something online, and everything I did up to that date was face-to-face, and I wanted to go online to fit, like you said about the master plan. Joe and I had this idea to potentially not stay where we are now. We don't know if that will come to fruition, but one of our sort of dreams would be to have a small holding with an outbuilding where Joe could have a forge, so maybe an overnight staying, so we could create an experience weekend, and we could live with more land around us, and that is too expensive where we are now. So this little vision, I sort of was thinking, well, I've built up a massive sort of clientele of face-to-face people, plus knowing how much I loved helping those people starting a business. So put two and two together here. So yes, and one of the things that is really key to this, and is really the sort of passion part of New Dawn, is I can't tell you what I've seen around my chocolate tanks. It is quite incredible. You think, everyone's all fun and coming along. I've seen every walk of life, and especially women of my sort of age who are so lost, who have really lost identity, who tell me how they'd love to do something, love to start something, don't have the confidence or don't believe in their skills, all those things we've talked about earlier. And I stand around my chocolate tank and say, yes, you can. Come on. And I realised that one of my things is the passion and enthusiasm for seeing people's potential, actually. Yes. Because when I start to talk to people, because a part of the New Dawn process, it is online. Yeah. We have a discovery call, like many people would for the start of a relationship with someone. And that is really important to me, to really drill down, because someone says, I want to bake buns or whatever, and then what's the reason behind it? It could just be a love of cooking, it could be something else, but there's always a story, there's always a reason that draws someone to that. So it's getting to the heart of that. And then I took ages to get this off the ground, because I sort of had some beliefs around, can it work online? I've only done face-to-face, but I put it together and I started trying to sell it, and I've had some people go through the process, and oh my word, it is incredible. It is so much more than I believed it could be. And what I mean, the same would be true for you, Adam, for anyone perhaps in our group that we're in. You don't realise the amount that you've amassed from all the things. So obviously there's the day-to-day running, but there's all the groups you've been in, the training you've done, the gurus you've followed, the investments you've made. Distilling that down and getting that across to people. And you see, even online, you know, I do a lot of my training on the Zoom calls, that sort of thing. You realise that little nugget that you pop down as something that you do is just like a light bulb for someone else. You think, oh yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's lots of wealth in what we've got, the experience, but it's so much more than that. It is very much the kick up the bums and the sort of remembering. I think when you've been in business for a while, you really get used to sort of looking forward and what you're aiming for, and that might twist and turn, as we say.
Yes.
But the person starting out is very often bogged down in the detail and the minutiae of things when they need to step up out of that.
Yes.
It's so easy to get bogged down in, but I've got to tell the council this and I've got to do the insurance for that. And it's like, yes, you can get all that done, but hang on, let's get back on track here. And it's seeing that, because you've been through it yourself. And all those mistakes, or not even mistakes, but all those things that you could have improved, you can say, no, come on. Let's stick with this path. This is what I understood. This is what I get about you. This is where we're going.
Yeah, and I think people get people can get overwhelmed, can't they, with all the stuff that needs to be done. And I think also, and I'm sure, well, I know one thing that you'd be absolutely fantastic at doing is inspiring that person that says, I'd love to be able to do this, but I don't think I can. And then breaking that down to say, well, look, that's a big block that I want to do this thing. Not a big blocker, but it's a big chunk of something that you'd love to be able to do. And the first step towards it is exactly that. It's just a step. You don't have to expect to be here on day one. But what you do need to do is make a small step of progress towards it. At some point, and I always talk about this, but at some point there'll come a leap of faith which says, right, I've packed my parachute. I know that the plane's got fuel in it, but there's got to come a point where you jump out and hope that everything that you've prepared is that the parachute's going to open and that you can land on ground that's firm and safe. But you've got to take that leap. And actually, I know, having someone like you by the side of them, the leap, it's like, okay, we'll take the leap, but we'll take it together. But you've got to be the person's got to be the one to cause the momentum. You can't jump for them. You can hold their hand on the journey down, and you can make sure that when they get there, they know what to do next. That leap of faith is the key moment, I always think, that people take. And magic happens after the leap of faith. You've got to plan for it. You've got to know what to do next, but you've got to take that jump. So you're delivering a lot of it online through Zoom. I know you're doing that even pre-lockdown. So So
I started with the New Dawn with that method, and then obviously it's become such a familiar way now. But I really did enjoy it. I still felt that I got to know people well, especially doing that discovery session at the beginning. And the way I did it, I delivered lots of training. The way it works is I deliver the training, and we do that on Zoom, and then that's all recorded so people can go back to it and go over it again and again if they need to. It's held in a membership site, lifetime access. So, we get stuck sometimes, or we need to go back and refresh ourselves. So that's all there. Then I follow up later in the week with a sort of any questions, bit of motivation really. And then what I do when we're in live training, we're always learning, me too. There's always something happened to me or in my business, any little anecdotes, any little stories I've got, shove those in as well.
Yes.
Just anything to keep you on track and keep you going and motivated. I mean, I one of my ladies who's absolutely flying at the minute, she would turn up to her training. She was going through such a difficult life thing, that there were tears running down her face. I don't know how she turned up. It was so difficult for her. So we'd have a little private moment and I'd just say, are you ready? I'm going to start now. And then I'd just deliver in my same energy, because she deserved that as much as, you know, the next person. And she would hide the screen because she didn't want to be seen, because she was so upset. And she worked through it and she just kept going, and she is flying. And you think, amazing things that people put themselves through or keep going. But I don't believe she would get there in the end, but she would have, unless there was something to turn up to and hold you to account. I just think she'd made her investment, so she was going to do it. And now she's flying. And I don't believe she'd be there with what was going on in her life without that.
No. And I think the program then, from my understanding of it, Dawn, it delivers a few different things. So, you know, experience from your own past of having set up and done it yourself, a plan, a post-discovery call to say, right, these are the things that you need to do. And then importantly, and again, you and I know this, again, it's one of those things that we know, but we forget everyone else doesn't sometimes. There's a huge power in accountability, isn't there?
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to do this, and I've agreed with you that I'm going to do this. So by the time we next speak, I'm either going to tell you I've done it, or I'm going to explain to you the reasons why I haven't, and then we'll work on the plan moving forward. It's one of the things I think I probably missed in my first year of business was that coach or partner to, because I'm one, you know, I'm like classic bloke, yeah. Don't want to admit my frailties. Well, I never used to. I do it all the time now. So when I was starting out, I didn't want to tell Danielle, you know, my wife, who had a 6-month-old baby at the time and a 3.5-year-old running up and down the stairs. I didn't want to put on her that I'd had a bad day, or I didn't want to ask her what she thought about certain things. Not because she wouldn't be able to offer me the advice. She'd be the best person in the world to do it. And I do it much better now than then. But to have someone to say, I haven't quite got this done, and someone to say, well, that's okay. How are we going to get it done now? Who could you get to help you with that? So I think that accountability is, and that mentor, that coach is incredibly valuable for anyone, even with the inkling of an idea that they'd like to start something, you know. Is there a pattern or a typical thing that is blocking people from starting up, or that surprises them when they do start up?
I think I've had various reasons given to me. I mean, over the course of running New Dawn for people, a lot of people believe that business itself is a dark art, you know, so there's some magic thing that they don't know. So typically, if I think, I've had people who've only ever been in a job, so they think running a business is something that they can't do. And that might be things like accounts, or, you know, where you can get all of that done for you if it's not your thing, you know. And I've had a couple of teachers who, because their background is so non-business, they believe that there was some mysterious thing to it. Yes, there's lots of things. And it might be simply like, oh, what did I have? We talked about turnovers, or, you know, it was the language of business. And once explained, they realised how simple it was. Yeah. So but I suppose the biggest thing is fear. And I think fear comes from what's the norm. The norm is you have a job, someone pays your way, and there's some belief that there's security in that. And I think it couldn't be more insecure, really. That's you know, running your own business is as secure as anything else. I feel you're a little bit more in control of it in a way. Yes, you might have to juggle cash flows and finances, and that is something you've got to get your head around. And yes, so fear of all of that, and fear that they might fail, or fear that they might be successful.
Yeah. Big ones, aren't they? You know, I mean, fear of failure puts people off. But actually, and mindset, which I know you mentioned, is so important, because there is an inherent fear in people of, what if I do this and it goes really well? What will my friends and family, who I love dearly, Think about me if that is the case. It's a very
Yeah.
British thing, I think.
Yeah.
It's certainly a Western hemisphere thing. What will people think if I get a new car on the drive or a new house to live in, or I suddenly... And I think that can be a blocker, you know.
I think it's huge. And I think especially, I have had men do my course as well as women. It's been predominantly women doing it. And obviously being a female, I relate to that. But one of the things that is really key is the sort of relationships that people are in, because if there's any difficulty in their relationship, or it is the fear, their success would mean they would have a choice about what to do. It would mean that they're not the supporter and they're not the second breadwinner, or indeed no breadwinner. And it does pose a choice for people. I think one of the things, we do grow running our own business. For me, it's been my biggest personal sort of growth thing, running my business. And I've really found a level of sort of happiness in myself. I'm not saying I was unhappy before. And it's just knowing that you're still the same person. You're just a sort of shinier version of yourself, or not a rustier version.
Yeah, well, you've grown, haven't you? You know, you've grown. I mean, actually, I sometimes wish I'd studied psychology in a bit more detail, but by all accounts, most of the traits of a person are well established by the time you're 7, 8 years old.
Absolutely.
You know? And there's not a huge amount of shift from the personality style from that point onwards. Of course, there's always, depending on pressures of the moment, shifts. Now, physically, you grow from the age of 7 or 8 years old, so you change, but actually internally. And then internally, if you take that step to progress your career or start a business or decide to have a family, you grow again because you learn more stuff. But actually, the being, the person, nothing's changed in there. You're exactly the same. I think there's a fear that if I change, will my relationships suffer? If I change, if I grow, will people think of me in the same way? And having, again, someone that has been through that and understands the mindset required, that it's okay. That's a lot of the time, that's all people want to hear, isn't it?
It really is okay. And I'll tell you the most moving moment. I went to the launch of someone I'd mentored to start a chocolate business. And I was really, really proud to be going. I was quite nervous to be going to this launch because, you know, she was following my formula. So, and she did it far better than I ever did. Isn't that the case? You think, oh, if only I'd known all of that. Anyway, I walked in the door and I saw her husband whisper something. Oh, you know, I could see it's that Dawn sort of thing. And he came stomping over. And I was thinking, oh, bloody hell, what's he going to say?
Yeah.
And he grabbed me and he gave me a kiss and he said, thank you for giving me my wife back. Because she'd been so unhappy in what she was doing and she was fired up. And I was absolutely teared up. I just thought that is an incredible, incredible thing to be part of. And so that fear of, you know, you're not feeling fulfilled doesn't have to be a bad thing to take that leap of faith. It can be a wonderful thing. You can come back to yourself and nothing's set in stone. Whatever you start, you know, when I started the chocolate business, the company I'd been made redundant from a couple of months down the line said, look, will you come and do something for us? And I said, look, I'll give you a day a week. I did marketing and whatever else for them. And for me, it was a chance to build my business organically for a while with a really part-time job. And actually, I took the decision to leave that behind a couple of years down the line because I knew it was holding me back. But by then I was established. So I really say that I started my business proper from 2013 because I went entirely on my own. And that's when I started doing the business opportunity and various other things. But, you know, whatever you decide to, you know, this life is so short. You've just got to, if that is a desire, have a go. What have you got to lose?
Don't have any regrets. You don't want to get to you don't want to get to a point in your life ever and look back and go, I wish, or what if. And whatever the outcome, you'll, I think, be satisfied further down the line knowing I gave that my best shot. I gave it a go, you know, and look where I am now, or, you know, however that works out. I think, Dawn, there'll be a real upsurge in demand and need for your services beyond the coronavirus and where we are now, because I think there'll be a lot of people out there thinking, you know, maybe I could try this, maybe I could do that. I've always fancied, pivoting. Everyone's using that word, or changing, doing something new. So, and I think there'll probably be some good government funding to support it as well, and hopefully some of that could be invested with someone like you to support them on that journey. I'm sure that'll be the case. If anyone's thinking about how or what they might do next, how can they best get in touch with you, Dawn?
Okay, so should I leave a website, email?
Well, give us your website and your email address now, and I'll put them in the show notes as well.
Thank you very much. So all the stuff on you, Dawn, is www.dawnfry.co.uk. Then there's various different, and there's lots of information about the course on there. Or if anyone wants to drop me an email, it's dawn@dawnfry.co.uk. So
yes,
yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah.
And I do, as I say, I do a discovery call. Not everyone decides to go with it. In fact, I often push it back at people, because many discovery calls are, you know, have you really thought about this, this and this? And someone needs to go away and think further. So, you know, they are there, they're free, and it's like a mini coaching session. So come along and say hi.
Yeah, I'd advise anyone listening that's thinking about it just to get in touch and have a chat, because that's the beginning, isn't it? That is that first small step towards whatever the big ambition is. Have a conversation, and people will be able to see from this that you're very easy to talk to, very open, very knowledgeable. And for the sake of a hour-long call, you could both discover a lot about one another, and that could form the plan moving forward. But I know that you're honest enough, Dawn, that if you didn't think it was the right thing for them, you'd let them know.
Absolutely.
You know? So either way, it comes out with a win. So I wanted to ask you as well. You've mentioned the E-Myth, and I'm sure that you're an avid business reader or consumer of content in that area. What would be, maybe what are you reading now, or what business book or personal development book have you read that's really stood out for you recently, and what's your top pick, really?
Okay, got it ready. It's by my bed. Ta-da! No, wow. I was telling you a little bit this, it might be upside down. Is it upside down?
No, I can see that perfectly.
Okay. So this lady I came across, I can't remember in what context, but she is very interesting, Eastern European lady who's sort of doing very well, selling online courses and encouraging people, but she's very much into what she calls energetic selling and marketing. And so it's a little bit of the woo-woo side, if you like. But what it really is, in a nutshell, is much more tuning in to that passion and purpose, and making sure that everything you do is aligned with that. So you can take it as a woo-woo thing, or you can just be a bit more sort of practical about it and saying, it's about, you've got to take action and you've got to do those marketing steps and everything else, but much more aligned to what you are about, more than just going through the motions. And I think there's some really brilliant prompting and coaching stuff in there that I found really useful. So I've had it for a little while, and I'm just reading it for a second time at the minute, because I sort of found it quite useful in lockdown to get out of my own head, if you like, a bit, and think a bit. And she talks about tuning into our higher selves, or whatever we want to call that. And I think, Adam, you and I have talked about that, that inflow moment when ideas are coming to you and stuff is, you're creating stuff without it, just time stops and on you go, because you're just in that moment where you're doing your purpose, if you like. And it's really about trying to tune into that more often. And I think that is great. I really enjoyed reading that.
Yeah, so remind me the name and the author, the book and the author.
Her name is Lenka Lutonska.
Yeah. And
it's called Energetic Selling and Marketing.
Brilliant. Well, I'll find an Amazon link to that, and I'll put it in the notes as well. Great. Well, I haven't heard of or read that one, other than you mentioning it briefly the other day, so I'll get myself a copy. And is there sort of a one standout business book for you that you've sort of come back to? Maybe it's the E-Myth, maybe it's something else that really got you inspired or taught you some new stuff?
Yeah, I think for me, and it's part of my course, I get people to read it. It would have to be Denise Duffield Thomas, Get Rich, Lucky Bitch, which
Okay,
is
great
great.
name, great
But
name.
I know it's really about your relationship with money, and not money per se, but it's really about self-worth
Yeah,
and how the pricing of things and how we get in our own way, if you like, because we're too scared to put a price on what we do. So
yeah.
that's another sort of mindset-y thing, but and it has a little bit of woo-woo elements. Obviously I'm drawn to those, but no, I found that I've used that a lot, and I recommend it to all my newbies, and they've had a similar reaction to me, found that very powerful.
Yeah, brilliant,
Especially if
fantastic.
you're a bit unconfident starting out, it's not putting a price on yourself, but trying to value yourself. And yeah,
Yeah,
it's quite a tricky thing, money side of things, isn't it?
it
Especially at
is.
the
It is.
outset.
See it all the time. As you know, my core business has been recruitment for so many years. We're branching out into a couple of other things now, which is interesting. But uh, so I've met lots of business people and enjoyed lots of great conversations with them. And money is the thing that holds people back so often.
Yes,
Because they say, "Oh, if only I could earn 20% more than, or if only I could make 20% more." Well, the simplest route to that is put your prices up by 20%.
sure.
It's like, well, yeah, but my market's so competitive and it's saturated. It's like, yeah, but you'd have to, even if you lost 20% of your customers, you'd still be in the same situation because you'd have
Absolutely.
put your prices up. There's something magical about it's always harder to, in people's minds, it's always harder to say than it is to do. But there's something about doing work for the correct value that means you do a
Yes.
better job.
Yes, you've got to value yourself, and I think one of the things that my new people come across is people's reaction to
Mm-hmm.
their pricing, because I've experienced this myself, and how it can really, when someone gets cross about what you've charged, or how dare you, because I think a lot of people may have come across that sort of reaction. It's so much their story and not yours, and just sitting comfortably, and you haven't plucked a figure from the air. You've put lots of thought and attention into why you're charging what you are, not least working out what it costs you, plus putting some value on it. So it really is their problem. And
It is entirely. Yeah, it
yeah,
is their. It's their problem. It's for you to understand how to overcome it.
sure.
But I always think the simplest thing is, if no one's giving you any price objections, well, you're not charging enough. Is one. If everyone goes, yeah, I'll bite your hand off for it, it's like, okay, time to put your prices up. But also, if people are saying no, as long as they're not always saying no, well, that's a good thing. It means that you got your price right.
Yeah.
Because it's one of the most difficult things in setting up. When someone says, I want to work with you, but I want a discount. Well, of course, I'm sure we've all given the odd discount here and there for whatever reason. Usually for me, it's if they'll pay me a bit quicker or buy more stuff off me, I'll give them a bit of a discount.
Yeah, sure.
It's about negotiating, but these are things that feel uncomfortable. Price, you're so right, is seeing the value in what you're delivering is so important. So I'm sure there's huge lessons in both of those books for anyone listening, definitely. So what's next for you, Dawn? We're coming towards the end of our hour or so.
Sure.
What's next for you? What do you see the next 6 to 12 months or beyond it looking like for the Fry household?
Well, I definitely going to focus on you, Dawn, and I really, like you, believe there'll be lots of people who want some help starting their new business. So really would like to see more people coming through that program.
Yeah.
Longer term project, I've started learning a bit about monetizing a blog, because I know that takes a couple of years, and so I'm in the background getting a new website ready to launch back end of later this year.
Great.
With and I've been learning about how to write certain styles of blogs and do all this, because that I just think that was interesting, and I was looking at ways to going forward find a strategy that would incorporate some of the things I did and cover off should we have long-term difficulties. So how could I earn money online in different ways, bearing in mind what we're facing, a sort of new future, if you like. So
yes.
yeah, so much of the same, with a few twists to safeguard for the future. But yeah, very much looking into pushing New Dawn. New Dawn's fairly new.
Yes.
And so, yes, I really like to scale that up and help more people. And I think there will be more online courses. I think as and when I discover what would be helpful. I mean, one of the things that came off the back of New Dawn is a small one-off building confidence course, because not everyone wants to run their own business. So I've got a little 4-weeker that is included with New Dawn now anyway, but people can buy that on their own, because whether you wanted to run a business or not, I wanted people to feel more confident.
Yeah. And you know, I think that's brilliant and very valuable, because, like you say, not everyone wants to do it, but everyone wants to feel that they could.
Yeah.
You know, and that is a confidence piece. And also, you know, Dawn, what people get, hopefully from people like you and I, but you know, definitely yourself, is we've trod that path, haven't we? In that you've got a family. You know, we've got a family. We've got domestic stuff that comes up that we've got to deal with, in amongst trying to create something towards our dreams, our goals, our dreams, our aspirations. And so all of that comes as a package. So knowing that, and whether it's building the confidence up to achieve a career goal within an employer, or stepping out, you know, it's that first step. So I would really encourage, once again, and I really do hope that lots of people over the next few months see this and think, right, I need a chat with Dawn, because they'll be a richer and better person for it, even if they don't pursue or take you up on your New Dawn course. So you know, I'm sure that will all continue to go well. I'd love to see you with that small holding and come and visit you for some
I'm coming to your neck of the woods as well.
Yeah. Oh, good. Well, there we go. Well, even better, because we've got a mutual friend as well, haven't we, Sue?
Yep.
The three of us could all sit outside and have a nice cup of tea and a bun, and
lovely.
Put the worlds to rights. Well, let's hope that happens soon in that case. So my last question, Dawn, and it's always the same for every person that I speak to, and I hope you saw it, and I'm not just dropping it on you without you having thought about it a little bit. If I am dropping it on you, well, it's just tough. So it's the time machine question.
Oh yeah.
And it basically is, if you could go back in time, where would you go back to? And what would you like to either relive just by watching it, because it was such a joyful and important moment, or maybe what would you change or tell yourself? It's your time machine. You can go back and do whatever you want with it. So if I could, if I could bend time for you and take you back somewhere, where would you go, and what would you watch or do or change?
I think definitely go back to sort of beginning of my career, and I would give myself more ambition. I would dare to think beyond nothing, and I would just say, just more belief in myself and my capabilities, and just knowing what opportunities. And it isn't particularly that I think, oh, I've missed out on something and I want to do something differently, but I would have perhaps started differently, gone down. There isn't an industry that I think, oh, I missed out on that. I wish I'd done that. But it is just doing anything I did with more belief in myself and more confidence, and trusting those abilities. And it took ages to sort of work out those abilities, because I didn't dare believe in them. So it really is an enhancement. And I don't know if that's a cheat, but it's just, it's always wonderful thinking we could go back and with what we know now, isn't it? But I would love to give myself a bit more confidence and a bit more, of what I know is possible.
It's that imposter thing again, isn't it? It's a little bit like if you could catch yourself in that office however many years ago with your new boss, and just tap yourself on the shoulder and say, hey, you, stop having these stupid thoughts. You're more than qualified to be here and more than capable of doing the tasks that they're doing. Now, the point is that you kind of came to that conclusion quite quickly anyway. I often think if I had a time machine, if it was me in the future and I could come back to me now, what would I tell myself? And it's always the same thing. It's, you know, you'll be fine. You're a creative guy. You can get through any of the tasks that you've got to do, and what, you know, the destination is set, and you'll arrive there. It usually comes back to confidence and grasping the opportunity. I bet you'd have loved to have had someone offering you the New Dawn program.
I think I would have bitten their hand off.
Yeah, you'd have bitten their hand off. Exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Exactly. Cool. Well, look, I mean, we're about on time, which is always good. Really great chatting with you, Dawn. But always fantastic. You and I, left unleashed, would just carry on chatting for the rest of the day, wouldn't we?
No.
Yeah, no problems.
No work
there.
ever getting done. No.
That's right.
No, it's been really fascinating for me as well. It's sort of really interesting to relive those moments and see how it shaped you and put you on the path that you're on now. So I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been great, and I know there'll be a lot of value in there for people as well. Any closing remarks or anything else before we go that we haven't asked that you might have wanted to have brought up?
You said something about if you're just starting out, what
Yes.
would you recommend to someone? Because some people may have started on this journey without any help, and I just you alluded to it earlier. I think it's really important to work out your big why. Why are you doing it? And because I think once you really have worked that out, everything else will fall into place. You don't have to get there immediately, but I know as part of the New Dawn, the first week's module, we call it discovery, but we look at every element of life. And like I've said, the small holding and the thing, you know, just holding that little dream there means that anything you do fits into it. You know, I'm not going to build up something that needs face-to-face in a location. I'm going to build up something different because I might need to move it. So work out that why. That was my big thing. I think
the starting point. So it's and again, I'm glad I asked you, because that's so important, and I'm sure that's a big part of what could come out of an initial call with you. Maybe even if it's just the homework to go away and think about that. Yeah. Stephen Covey, one of his 7 habits is start with the end in mind.
Yeah.
You know, and that then informs the decisions that you make, as you've quite rightly just said about, you know, where you might be, how you might conduct the conversations that you need to have, how available you can be. But knowing why you're doing it and what the ultimate goal might be informs the actions that you take beyond it. So, you know, hugely important advice, and I'm glad that we covered that. Yeah, perfect.
Excellent.
Well, look, I'm sure you've got a million things to be getting on with, and a million people that demand in your time. So thanks for sharing so much of it with me.
Thank you, Adam.
I'll write up the notes and post that when I put it out, and I'll let you know when I've done that, Dawn. And thanks for your time. I'm sure we'll be in touch again soon.
Indeed. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Cheers. All the best.
Bye. Bye.